On this edition of Trial Watch, Pam Vesser's husband divorced her because she refused to get an abortion. Then he made her give up her home, her job, and her friends so he could share custody of the child he never wanted. They met on the job, fell in love on the job, and married on the job. But instead of lingerie, her boss gave her a pink slip. Plus, for most of us, Fatal Attraction was only a movie. But when Ron Ruse ended a real-life love affair, it ended in murder. All this next on Trial Watch. Real people, real trials. Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Weller, and with me is my co-anchor, attorney Lisa Speck.
Hello. Welcome to Trial Watch.
Well, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Ron Ruse learned this lesson the hard way. He tried to break up with his girlfriend, only to find she would not be ignored. If she couldn't have him, no one could. Their love affair ended all right, but it ended all wrong. Linda Riccio had a fiery love affair with Ron Ruse. He finally called it off after 5 stormy years, but Linda refused to let him go and was determined to make his life a living hell.
Linda began harassing him. She did things like canceling his tickets to his 10-year reunion. She tracked him wherever he went. She went to the golf course and, harassed him on the golf course. She went to baseball games and harassed him in front of all of his friends. She went to work and created scenes.
I knew she would hurt him if she possibly could. But you never sit down and think, well, yeah, she's going to kill my son.
But Linda's attorney, Jack Early, heard a different story.
Ron had this relationship and had her as a yo-yo at the end of a string. And throughout the time that they had lived separately, Ron would have her over, Ron would start the relationship, and then Ron would end the relationship again.
Not anything other than this whole situation is absurd.
That's not the way Ron saw it. He feared for his life. He finally got a court to order Linda to stay away. But the day the restraining order was imposed, Linda bought a gun.
She shot at a silhouette target, apparently aiming only for the head and the crotch. And from what we understand during the trial, she then took her target with her to a bar in Escondido and sort of showed it around to the guys in the bar. And it was a big joke that evening in the bar about what she was going to do to her ex-boyfriend.
Without Ron knowing it, Linda rented the apartment right next to his. And then late one evening, his nightmare exploded, with Linda hiding by his door, a revolver clutched in her hand. The neighbors heard Ron Ruse's last terrible moments.
What they heard was Ron yell, "Oh God, no, please don't shoot." Boom. "No, no, please don't shoot." Boom. And then boom, boom, boom.
Ron Ruse died on the way to the hospital. Linda fled into the night, then incredibly turned herself in.
I don't think any of us ever asked who shot Ron. We knew immediately that Linda had done it.
When Linda went to trial, she did a complete turnaround, claiming that the murder was an accident. She said she was trying to commit suicide when Ron lunged for the gun.
I just have one thing to say, and that is my heart goes out to the Ruse family and to all of you who did not murder your son. To the court and to the public, I did not murder Ron Ruse.
But prosecution witnesses testified Linda not only harassed Ron, but previous boyfriends also. And the suicide defense fell apart when forensic evidence proved Linda shot Ron twice in the back. It was not an easy case for Linda's attorney.
When a case is portrayed in the media, people who would come forward and testify are going to end up being portrayed as a supporter of one side or the other. And it makes it difficult for people to want to get involved when they know that their testimony is going to be reported as testifying for somebody who is called a fatal attraction killer.
The Ruse family wanted the death penalty for Linda Riccio, but the jury gave her 27 years to life. Now the Ruses live in mortal fear of the day she's paroled.
She stalked her victim as efficiently as any hunter stalks game. If Linda's paroled in 5 years, I'll feel like I should change my name and leave the state.
Well, you'd think that being behind bars and earning the nickname the Fatal Attraction Killer would cut down on Linda's love life. But somehow, Linda Riccio has won the heart of a new boyfriend, a former guard at the prison where she's now serving her sentence. In fact, they're even engaged to be married. Ron Ruse's family is very upset by the new relationship. And Lisa, why would they be so upset?
I'm sure they're upset because they're concerned about how the marriage would look to the parole board. Being married could help Linda to appear more stable, and that could make her eligible for an early release. Her first opportunity for freedom will come in the year 2003. That's only 12 years away. The family of Ron Ruse finds that idea terrifying.
What a story. All right. Just ahead on Trial Watch. Her husband left her because she was pregnant, then sued her for custody of the child.
For most married couples, having a baby is a blessed event. For Pam and Michael, it was cause for divorce.
When Pam refused her husband's demand to have an abortion, Michael made life a living hell for both Pam and their baby boy. After 8 years together, Pam Vesser and Michael Fingert finally decided to tie the knot. They moved from Chicago to the West Coast, eventually settling in Ventura, California, near Los Angeles, so Michael could open a business there. 2 years later, in 1981, Pam found out she was pregnant, and that's when the trouble began.
When I was 2 months pregnant, we were just beginning to tell people what was going on, and we were having dinner with some friends, and he said, "I've got some good news and some bad news." And everybody was elated, and said, "What's the good news?" And he goes, "Well, Pam's going to be a mother." And then they said, "Well, what's the bad news?" And he said, "I'm going to be a father." And, I remember feeling like I was going to just fall off my chair onto the floor.
When she was 5 months pregnant, Michael gave Pam an ultimatum: abort the child or I'm leaving.
And I looked at him like, "You're nuts, you're crazy, whoa." I said, "No, I'm not going to. This was a planned pregnancy." And he goes, "Well, if you don't, this marriage is over." And that day, my marriage was over to him.
And just before the baby was born, Michael sent the divorce papers, which would end their 14-year relationship.
I could not believe that this person would have nothing to do with his own child. I think that hurt more than anything at that point. The way he just absolutely shunned the baby was unbelievable to me.
To make matters worse, Pam discovered Michael's problem wasn't just the new child, but an affair he was having.
Our 6-year-old next-door neighbor came running over to see the baby, and in conversation, she said to me, "Who was that blonde lady we saw Mike at the movie with?" I said to her, "What blonde lady?" And she started describing her to me, and who she was describing was Michael's receptionist at his office.
However, Michael and Pam called an uneasy truce, living together for a few months after baby Josh was born. But that time did little to change Michael's outlook.
He refused to have anything to do with the baby, rarely would walk into his bedroom, would refer to him as your kid. If the baby was crying, or if there was a problem, he'd say, "Your kid is crying. Go shut your kid up. Why don't you take your kid and go back to Chicago," which is where I'm from.
Not surprisingly, the court awarded custody to Pam. Michael was granted visitation rights, which he rarely exercised, even though he lived only 2 miles away from his son. That's why Pam didn't think there would be much of a problem when she announced plans to move back to Chicago to take over her parents' business there. She had another thing coming.
He kept telling me, "Take your kid and go back to Chicago." Well, I decided to do that. So I started the process. I sold my house. I had shipped most of our stuff back to Chicago. And while we were in that process, we got served with a restraining order.
Michael Fingert had gotten a court order prohibiting Pam from taking Josh out of the state of California without her ex-husband's approval. Pam decided to move to San Diego instead, while she fought for the freedom to live where she wants. The 1 week per month Josh began spending with his dad, however, took its toll on the little boy.
Josh was having a very difficult time with visitation. The doctors label it separation anxiety because he had not developed a relationship at a young age with his father. And there was screaming, there was yelling. Joshua would throw up. He had terrible stomach aches. This went on for a couple of years, actually.
In 1985, Pam took a new job, and she and the now 3-year-old Josh moved to the San Francisco area. But she failed in her legal efforts to ease Josh's visitation schedule and the stress that came with it.
The judge, for some strange reason, ordered Josh to stay on this 1 week per month program where he would go to school 3 weeks in San Francisco and 1 week in Ventura, and that made him the first child in the United States ever to be ordered by a judge to do such a thing.
Once again, Pam and Michael went back to court. She suggested Josh could spend weekends, holidays, and summers with his father. Fingert argued that his ex-wife should move back to Ventura so Josh could attend school there. The court agreed and gave Vesser 1 week to move or give up her child. What's a mother to do? Give up her life or give up her child to the man who never wanted him? We'll find out what Pam decided when Trial Watch returns. Michael Fingert told his pregnant wife, Pam, to get an abortion or a divorce. She gave birth to a son, Josh, and divorced her husband, Michael. She thought the worst was finally over, but it was just beginning.
They decided that because I made less money and because I didn't own a home, that Josh and I should move back to Ventura. So in 1 week, I had to find a place to live, get rid of the place I lived in, dissolve a business, pack up, and move, and have no job to go to.
The court was saying that Josh should live in the community where the more wealthy parent lived. And if Pam hadn't moved, Josh would have lost all contact with her. She would have no longer been the custodial parent. Pam did move. For 2 years, she was held hostage in Ventura.
Frustrated and desperate, Pam sought the aid of the American Civil Liberties Union, which filed and won an appeal.
What the Court of Appeal said was that that's impermissible. We can't assume that the parent who makes more money is going to be a better parent.
But Pam's nightmare didn't end. No sooner did she win her appeal than Michael, her ex-husband, filed his own appeal against it.
The war has got to stop.
Finally, in January of 1991, after 8 bitter years, the war did subside as a court-appointed psychologist recommended Josh live with his mother. Michael Fingert finally gave in.
I feel I've come to the conclusion in recent days that Josh might be better served by living with his mother, wherever that may be. And so long as Josh is allowed quality time with his dad and our family.
So ended Michael Fingert's legal battle for physical custody of the child he demanded his ex-wife abort 9 years before. The judge did give Fingert a share in Josh's legal custody and visitation rights. Now Pam Vesser can finally move back to Northern California, a move she's been trying to make for over 2 years.
When I moved, I mean, you have a lot of packed boxes. Well, I only unpacked what I needed. And to make us comfortable, I left approximately 40 or 44 packed boxes in the garage. It's been 2 years, and they're still packed, and they're still in the garage, waiting to be able to move back up to the Bay Area. And now we get our chance.
Pam Vesser spent 8 years and $150,000 fighting her ex-husband in court, but she says it was worth it. She won custody of her son Joshua. Now, Lisa, in a child custody case, what should a judge look at?
The standard is the best interest of the child. That's what a judge should consider.
Now, how then could this judge order the move?
Well, this judge based his decision on the fact that the father was making more money, and the father had a job, a career in Ventura County, so that's where he wanted the mom to live and the child.
Is it typical that judges will favor, with money if one parent has more money than the other?
Well, I don't know if it's typical, but it's not right, and that's what the court said here. In fact, I have a copy of the decision here, and the judge said any rule based on the relative wealth of parents will almost invariably favor men and discriminate against women. That's why the court struck this down. So it's a big victory for women in California because now they can live anywhere they want to and still have custody of their children.
Next on Trial Watch, she was told, lose your husband or lose your job. Can you be fired for marrying a cop?
If it wasn't a match made in heaven, it was certainly made in court. The New Jersey courthouse is where Joe and Marie met. It's where they fell in love and where they got married. But their legal hitch soon ran into a legal hitch.
Detective Hughes.
Joe Hughes has been a cop in North Arlington, New Jersey for nearly 20 years. Marie has been a court clerk there for 13 years. They met on the job. In 1988, they got married. despite the fact they knew there were regulations against such relationships.
There was a rule saying you could not be appointed court clerk if you're married to a police officer. But she was the court clerk long before she married a police officer.
Nonetheless, the state objected to the wedding and sent them bad news in the mail.
Subsequent to their marriage, they received a letter and said, we're sorry, you're either going to have to get divorced or lose your job. They thought that was ridiculous. We also thought it was a bit much.
I have to start from the bottom of the ladder. I would lose all my benefits, lose all my pay increases. And I just didn't think it was fair that I would leave something that I loved very much, and I decided to challenge the ruling.
Joe and Marie filed suit saying the rule violated their right to privacy. The state countered, saying police officers often appear before court clerks in judicial proceedings, and even the appearance of impropriety must be avoided. A federal judge sided with the Hughes, but the state is appealing that decision, and Joe and Marie are vowing to fight on.
We are human beings, and we have a right not only to marry, but we have a right to make a living and work where we choose to work.
Well, the Garden State is certainly no Garden of Eden, but until some New Jersey court hands down a final ruling, Joe and Marie get to keep both of their jobs and their marriage. What a story.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we all make snap judgments, and we make them every day. So every day, we're going to give you the chance to make a snap judgment on a legal issue. Lisa will give you the facts in the case, then tell you how the court really decided, and you'll see if your decision matches the court's ruling.
This is an unbelievable case. I bet you guessed this one wrong. Most people get the blues on Monday, but Bob Crawford had a very blue Sunday. He was on an outing with his daughter in Prospect Park, New Jersey, when his van started leaking antifreeze. He crawled underneath to fix it. A cop just happened to see him and wrote him a ticket. The charge? Violating a local 100-year-old blue law, which forbids doing any work on Sunday. Bob decided to fight that ticket and the 19th century law in court. What do you think happened? We'll find out when Trial Watch continues.
So when Bob broke the blue law, did his day in court save him from a ticket, Lisa?
Hard to believe, but Judgment Day went against Bob, even though he argued he had to fix the van in order to drive it. The court said, you were working on Sunday, so pay the fine. $10 and $5 more in costs.
Incredible. So the moral of the story is if you're going to take a Sunday drive, make sure you don't break down in Prospect Park, New Jersey.
Yes.
Another car story. Does getting your car repaired drive you crazy? You know, you get lousy service, you pay a fortune, and the darn thing still doesn't work. Well, most of us dream of revenge. Betty Turner of Jacksonville, Florida, took it again and again and again. It all started when the Jacksonville, Florida woman took her used Volvo in for a simple repair.
They told me that I had this strange ticking noise under the hood and I should try to recognize it. I could not, so they said, well, it's real serious and it's called a cam problem and you need to have a cam job done.
5 weeks and nearly $3,000 later, Betty got her car back, only to have it break down again and again and again.
If I went to the grocery store, it broke down. If I went to take the kids to school, it broke down. I mean, it was really, it's horrible. I always had cab fare money with me because I was always breaking down.
Betty says she asked Parrish Volvo to fix her car. They refused, and that's when she took her gripe public. First in a newspaper ad, then on a billboard, and finally hiring an airplane to fly her message all over town. Parrish Volvo flew into a rage and filed a slander suit. They wanted Betty to shut up. And Betty says they even threatened her over the phone.
The calls were proven by the phone company and the law officials here that they did come from Parrish Volvo. They did not come from just the outside phone in the lobby area. They came from inside the dealership.
Claiming harassment and fraud, Betty sued Parrish Volvo for $5 million. At the same time, her complaints to Volvo North America and even a trip to Volvo headquarters in Sweden didn't help.
These people, what they did to me, it was just absolutely and totally ridiculous. It was not fair. They shouldn't do it to anybody else, and they shouldn't have done it to me, and they shouldn't do it to anybody else.
As the battle mushroomed, Parrish Volvo offered to buy her car back and pay for all the repairs. But Betty also wanted to be reimbursed for all the money she spent causing them trouble. Now, that was a lot more money than Parrish Volvo was willing to spend, so they refused. Now, you see, Betty's battle has not come cheap. Although the car only cost her about $12,000, so far she's shelled out $60,000 to wage her one-woman war, and she's not through fighting. And when Betty Turner finally gets her day in court, you can bet Trial Watch will be there. As for the troublesome Volvo, she junked it, Lisa.
Good.
Yeah, she's driving a Pontiac now.
Good for her. Well, that's it for today.
Join us again tomorrow for Trial Watch. Real people, real trials.